Welcome to the show. Good to have you here. I am Trish Regan. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. Pam Bondi, this is some big news out of her. She said she's got a truckload of the files, guys. And she's ready to get to work. She and Kosh are actually working through them as we speak. And they're going to be releasing them, hopefully a little bit better this time, right? I mean, Ana Paulina Luna, the representative from Florida, who's in charge of the task force to actually disseminate all of this classified information. She wasn't even given a heads up last time, but maybe this time it's going to happen. It looks like this time they're pulling their act together. Again, Pam Bondi announcing that she has a truckload of documents now related to the Epstein case. This is after she had gotten significant pushback from the FBI out of New York. Things have changed. Listen to her here.
We all did. And the FBI handed over a couple hundred pages of documents. But, you know, Sean, I gave them a deadline of Friday at 8 a.m. to get us everything. And a source had told me where the documents were being kept. Southern District of New York, shock. So we got them all by, hopefully all of them, Friday at 8 a.m. Thousands of pages of documents. I have the FBI going through them, and Cash is also, now that we have Cash here, it's a game changer, of course, and Cash is going to, Director Patel, is going to get us a detailed report as to why the FBI withheld all of those documents.
Okay, I want to be clear because I think people got frustrated because they were expecting more. You were expecting more, and you didn't find out less than 24 hours before the release. You got a whistleblower that confirmed that there were way more documents that they were supposed to turn over, and then you found out just before that.
Well, sure, and you're looking at...
In other words, the FBI lied.
These documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, they were flight logs, they were names and victims' names, and we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York. Yeah. So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI. Cash is going to get me, and himself really, a detailed report as to why all these documents and evidence had been withheld. And, you know, we're going to go through it as fast as we can, but go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims of Epstein, because there are a lot of victims.
Well, you had identified in phase one over 254.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, is that the only thing that would be redacted? Will everything else be made public that you get in your possession?
Yeah, the FBI hasn't had, obviously, they haven't looked at the thousands of pages of documents that they've just received Friday. Yeah. But Cash has a team going through them, and it's always about protecting the victim. But you know what? We believe in transparency, and America has the right to know. The Biden administration sat on these documents. No one did anything with them. And why were they sitting in the Southern District of New York? I want a full report on that. You know, sadly, these people don't believe in transparency, but I think more, unfortunately, I think a lot of them don't believe in honesty. And it's a new day, it's a new administration, and everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
And that goes the same with the JFK files,
JFK,
RFK files,
Martin
MLK.
Luther King. Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. What are the things that, and maybe some people don't understand the need to redact. In the case of a victim, that should be pretty obvious to people. What are the other things that maybe you would have to redact?
Well,
national security?
No, of course, national security, some grand jury information, which is always going to be confidential. But we'll see. Let's look through them as fast as we can, get it out to the American people, because the American people have a right to know, not only on that, but on Kennedy, on Martin Luther King, on all of these cases that the Biden administration has just sat on for all these years. So yeah, it's really. It's not sad. It's infuriating that these people thought that they could sit on this information, but they can't. It's a new day, and we believe in transparency, and it's going to come out. And when we redact things, Sean, what we're going to do is not just pull pages out like they used to do. If something's redacted, you will know the line, and you will know why it's redacted, like a victim's name, identifying information of a victim.
Wow. Okay, so basically, she was just saying that the FBI had lied. Masamion Marine, thank you so much for your generosity. Appreciate it. Very interesting. Little note from you, Krista Compton. I'm glad that you like the show. You guys heard that, right? I mean, it sounds like they just flat out lied to her. She had a whistleblower internally that told her, hey, there's thousands of documents. They only gave you 200 pages. So things changed, of course, when she came out with this letter on Friday of last week. And look, it was frustrating, right? Like, we all sat here together. It looked like there was going to be something major. It didn't happen. It seemed like a pretty bad rollout in a variety of ways. They brought all those influencers down to DC, and they were standing there, and they'd been given the binders, and they thought that they had something, but they didn't. And nobody else really, I mean, I guess at some point, Pam and Cash, they realized that they had information that was being withheld. And as a result, maybe they just didn't try and make a big deal of it. I would have taken on a different tact, perhaps. I would have gone absolutely nuclear in that moment in time and probably held a press conference and probably said, Cash, stand up here by my side and we're going to totally shout to the rooftops that the FBI is not doing the right thing. But that's effectively what she said in that tough letter. And she said in that letter, and I know, Leslie, I'm looking at your comment, maybe everybody will give her a second chance. I think we're always willing to give people second chances, okay? Let's just start there. Hey, Zelensky may even get a second chance. Rumor has it that he's doing a deal with Trump as we speak. So maybe America gets the rights to the minerals there in Ukraine after all. We'll see. We may hear that announcement coming forward tonight. So I'm hearing. But Pam deserves a second chance. Okay, that's fair. She did send this letter. She did put everyone on notice. And guess what? James Dennehy, the head of the FBI in New York, he got fired for a couple reasons. One, because he was in the way, he wouldn't actually deliver the names of the people that had worked on the J6 prosecutions. And secondly, because he wouldn't turn over any of this Epstein evidence. So how can you have a system when you get a DOJ and you get a head of the FBI, Director Kash Patel, saying, hey, we need this, and you have the guy in New York in this standoff saying, I'm not going to do it. And then you start saying to yourself, well, what is the real reason that they were stonewalling her? And even when, did you see Hannity asked her, okay, well, what do you need to redact? What do you need to take out? Are there matters of national security? Are there those kind of implications? And you know where we're going with this, guys. I hate to say it, but of course, everybody fears that Epstein, what if he were under the protection of U.S. intelligence in some way, shape, or form? Because the word on the street is, okay, and this has not been confirmed, so I want to be cautious in how I address this, but the word on the street, including, by the way, from a very, very good source that I spoke with, who knows him quite, or did know him quite well, spoke to him less than 24 hours before he died. The belief is that he was working in intelligence and that he was selling secrets effectively to the CIA, possibly Israeli intelligence, possibly some other intel operations as well. And because of this, he had gotten, shall we say, a lifeline when he had been arrested down in Florida. And so he got a sweetheart deal back in 2008. And yet, because he indicated while he was in jail that he was willing to talk, because maybe he thought that was his leverage, well, they came after him pretty hard. The fear is that this woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, whose dad reportedly worked for multiple intelligence agencies, including not just Israeli intelligence, but the CIA, possibly the KGB, a few others along the way. There's been a lot documented about him, and he was mysteriously killed, incidentally. Anyway, the belief is that he was putting in what's called this promise software into global governments, and it acted as a backdoor so that other intel agencies would be able to see, say, for example, what the CIA was doing. And this was something that was advantageous perhaps to Mossad, if that in fact is, and I have to be cautious with how I say this because none of this has actually been proven. It's just what is believed. And I sort of believe it. All right, so you know where I stand. But anyway, so this Robert Maxwell had this business, right? And he brought his daughter, whom he was very close to. She was like the favorite child, into the business. And so she was familiar with all his contacts and his intelligence work. Well, what did she do? She seemingly went out and recruited Jeffrey Epstein, who was like a down on his luck Bear Stearns floor trader who had previously worked as a math high school teacher at a private school in New York, Dalton, actually. Interesting that he was a high school teacher, given his inclination towards young women. He, at some point, had some kind of problem at Dalton, left, went to Bear Stearns, some kind of problem there. And the guy who runs Victoria's Secret Limited Brands, he kind of took him under his wing, introduced him to Ghislaine. And then the next thing you know, lo and behold, he turns into a multimillionaire. And the thinking is maybe she recruited him knowing that he had this massive evil flaw. I mean, that's proven, right? So we can say that. And that would be some real compromise, should we say, on individuals. And so the concern, and I think that's where Hannity was going, was, are you going to have to withhold stuff? Because basically it implicates the U.S. in this. Because listen, like, if we find out that U.S. intel was somehow complicit in any way and knew about this, but somehow looked the other way because the intel was that great, that's a big problem. Because it's one thing when you're dealing with adults, but in this particular situation, you're not. You're dealing with underage girls. And so it makes it a whole other level of evil, shall we say. Alex Acosta, he was the U.S. attorney that handled Epstein's case back in 2008. He reportedly had said that Epstein belonged to Intel. This is per, and we have to take it with a grain of salt because it's the Daily Beast, and the Daily Beast is what the Daily Beast is a liberal rag sheet. But according to the Daily Beast, they spoke with sources close to Acosta who said that he was told this. In other words, he went so easy on him. He only had to spend 12 hours a day in the jail, 12 hours a day out of jail. And it was like just 8 months or so because it was known that he belonged to the intelligence operation. Well, he belonged to them, right? Until he didn't, until he was willing to sing like a canary. And that's when he may have met his fate. We don't know this. That's what we want to find out. And it's not just the names. Like for me anyway, I'm most interested not just in the names, but whether the U.S. was complicit in the setup. And that would be really troublesome, right? If that is what we in fact learned to be true. And so again, Pam Bondi now has this truckload of files. She's saying the FBI lied to her thanks to the whistleblower. She knew that there was more out there. She demanded that she get it. And lo and behold, she has. And that's good news. And now she and Kosh are going to go through it. I keep saying Kosh. It's my New Hampshire accent. What can I say? We say aunt instead of aunt. My husband is from upstate New York. He's like, why do you always say aunt? And I still do to this day, right? Anyway, so Cash, I'm sorry. It's just it's a bad habit, but you ought to hear me say mitten. And I now say drawer, but I once used to say draw. So, sometimes the accent just comes out. What can I say? Take a girl out in New Hampshire, can't take the live free or die out of a girl. Again, good to have you guys here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff.